Good afternoon. This is Charisse, Monè't, and welcome to A Word on Books. I want to always start by thanking my supporters. The feedback you give me is amazing. I hope you can see me incorporating that feedback as you watch further segments, and as I'm moving forward, I'm hoping it's getting better for you and I'm implementing the things that you suggested. Housekeeping. I want to start by talking about the fact that I've had a lot of people ask me about subscribing to YouTube. So I have a Facebook account that's under Charisse Monè't and a Twitter account that is A Word on Books. And both of those will give you directions or links and videos to tell you how to subscribe. Subscribing is important for a number of reasons. Why? If you subscribe, you'll get an email that tells you when I send a video, and I won't bombard you with text messages saying, hey, the next segment is up, please watch it. Also, it helps to boost me and get me out there. So I'm going to ask humbly, if you like it, please share it. If you think it would be something that would be beneficial to somebody else, please share it. If you think I'm absolutely comical and you think it's funny that I sit up here and I drink champagne and discuss books with you and you want to make me go viral, I'm all for it. All I ask is that you please subscribe. It is free for you to subscribe. You can choose whether or not you want to be notified, so your phone's not pinging and your email's not filling up all the time. It's entirely up to you, but I do ask that you subscribe. And if you have any questions or if you want me to, I'll link the links on this page. I'm still working on how to do all of that, so be patient with me. I talked to you guys last week about a book that I had started that I had yet completed, and it was by Lisa Scottolini, read by Kate Burton, excellent reader, that was reading book 5 of the Rosato and D'Annunzio series, and it was called Exposed. Basically, it's about an attorney who works in a firm, and she's from her neighborhood, and she's recently made partner at the firm, so there's a constant struggle between doing what's right for the neighborhood or doing what's right for the firm. In this particular book, the struggle arises. She sticks to her guns, basically. This is what I'm going to do. This particular book of Lisa Scottolini was one of the first where I actually thought that the main character or one of the main or supporting characters was going to die. So it was a pretty exciting book. However, as with always, happily ever ending, a bow on the end of it, bad guys caught, so forth, the end. So again, it was a decent book. I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it if you like books that end always with a happily ever after. Good plot throughout this book. So for this book, I'd say it deserved 4 glasses. Shout out to Lisa Scottolini on that one. I also posted on my Twitter account and my Facebook page the upcoming series that I'll be talking about this week. That way, hopefully, if it's something you're interested in, you'll make a special effort to tune in early. This week, I'm talking about memoirs. And the cool thing about memoirs, especially the ones that I had the privilege of listening to, was from the voice of the writer themselves. And that made it cool. Listening to the person, a voice that you've heard in so many other different ways, but to hear them tell their own story. The first one I want to talk about it's called Born a Crime, and it's stories from a South African childhood. It's by Trevor. This particular person was introduced to me by my BFF, John Ross. And he told me that, hey, I think you should check this guy out. He's really funny. And I did, and I found him to be enjoyable, and I've watched a number of his stand-up routines, and I found all of them to be funny. He has also managed to get a hosting position on The Daily Show since those stand-ups. So when I saw that he had a book, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be super funny. The book came out November 15th, 2016, and it's about 9 hours, give or take, close to it. And I was expecting it to be more of a stand-up type or something like that, but actually it was not. It's not to say that it didn't have funny parts, but it was a very interesting book. It spoke of his childhood, talked about the political things that were going on, early apartheid, segregation. If you know anything about Trevor, his mother was African. His father was from Switzerland. So he was literally born a crime because there was not supposed to be any interracial relationships at all during that time. So it talked about his childhood and his struggles. Now, the thing with this book, although I found it to be a very good book, I enjoyed hearing his story, is that I found that he skipped around a lot. He always came back on topic. I think for me, listening to this book made it easier for me to keep up with it. He has a wonderful speaking voice, his tones, his inflections, all of that was great storytelling. But you have to follow the book because he'll be talking about something that happened as a child. He'll skip over, he'll come back to something, and it can make it kind of complicated if you're not focused. So it's a very good book. His story is phenomenal. I don't think this is the last that we'll hear of him as far as the written word or the spoken word. I don't, because he's a very young man and his life is just really beginning. So I expect to hear more about him. I would say that it ranked good, and for good, we all know that that is 4 glasses of champagne. Cheers, Trevor Noah. Good job on your book. I'm actually looking forward to more from you. The next one was I Can't Make This Up, Life Lessons. Written and told by Kevin Hart. This book came out June 6, 2017. And it was over 11 hours long. Okay, I know what you're thinking, like, oh my God, why would I want to listen to an 11-hour book? It's him, and he's just talking, and it's very conversational. It's extremely conversational. It's pretty linear. Talks about his life. You know, it's funny in parts, but it has just enough of real life to let you know the struggles he went through to get to where he is. So I found it to be a very good book. Interesting thing about the book is that it sounded very conversational, and he was making up the name of the chapters as he went along. And what was kind of funny about that is that it made him telling the book even more personal. I don't know if I would have gotten the same enjoyment out of the book if he had not come at it that way. So it was a really good book. Again, it was a good book. Really good. I'm going to say that that was probably 4.5 glasses. So cheers. Check out Kevin Hart's book. The third book. The third book was Around the Way Girl, a memoir. And this was by Taraji P. Henson. This book actually came out in October 11th, 2016. And it's about 7.5 hours. This book made me want to be friends with her. I mean, flat out. Listening to her tell her story, very conversational, very like, I felt like I was sitting in the room with her and she was just telling me about her life. And it was so interesting that my voice was irrelevant because I didn't need to interrupt. Her story was that good. It was a real story. It was a struggle that a lot of us can agree with, deal with, been through on some level. Maybe it didn't land us on a TV show, but it was a struggle of a real woman going through some things. She's single parent, the whole 9 yards, issues with her son. I mean, it was a real story. I felt like she was sitting up having a glass of champagne in her bathrobe just telling me the story. Her story prompted me to look up different things that she brought up. Made me go back and revisit movies. Seeing that she was a part of things that I didn't even know that she was a part of. I became a true fan of Taraji P. Henson. I liked her, but I loved her after listening to her book. I would highly recommend it. Her voice is amazing. This was definitely a five glass, which is an entire bottle. Shout out to you, Taraji P. and shout out to you. That was an excellent book. I've recommended it. I've sent it to people on Audible. Audible lets you get your first book free. I shared that book with so many people, hoping that they would get the same joy I got out of it. So cheers to you, Taraji. And last but not least, before we close it out, I want to quickly talk to you about my throwback. My throwback is Maybe You Never Cry Again by Bernie Mac. This book was only about 4.5 hours long. I've probably listened to this book 3 or 4 times. It came out September 7th, 2006. Beware. He has 2 books. He has one that's I Ain't Scared of You and Maybe You'll Never Cry Again. This one is the one, Maybe You'll Never Cry Again. And basically it talks about his childhood and how he came to be the Bernie Mac that we knew and loved. And the Maybe You Never Cry Again had to do with the fact that his mother was really sad one day and she was crying. And she called him Bean. And that was his nickname, Bean. And she asked him, you know, he was like, Mom, what's wrong or whatever. And she happened to be watching TV. And then all of a sudden she was laughing. And Bill Cosby was on the TV set. And he saw the joy that Bill Cosby brought to his mother in that moment of sadness and decided he wanted to be a comedian. So that was the start of it. And Bernie Mac got in trouble in school, misbehaved. He was just a handful. What I loved about the book is that if you knew anything about Bernie Mac, it took you through periods of his life that you was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. You know, his stand-up. I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. Kick it. All of that. It makes you go back and it makes you watch it. And and that's the thing. A memoir or your story or their story or whoever, it makes you feel closer to the individuals. It's what they've chose to share about themselves. Does it all have, could they have left something out? Sure, they could have left something out, whatever the case may be. Could they have embellished? Sure, they could have. But the amazing thing is you're hearing the voice of the author, and they're sharing what they want you to know about them and their lives and their struggles. So with that, thank you so very much. I really enjoy this time. I look forward to this time every single solitary week. Keeping it real, keeping it 100. A Word on Book, Charisse Monè't. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And thank you so much for taking time to listen to me.